right, good evening, everyone. This is the Tag Out Podcast. My name is AJ East Coast, and I am your host.
And it's me, it's JeremyAT, the co-host with the
The
most.
co-host with the most. I love it. That's gonna get easier to say as we keep going. But this is now. Sorry about the late start, guys. I know they said the stream starting soon was up there for a minute. We just had some technical issue needed to take care of real quick. But if you joined us last night, but by the way, I just really want to say last night the viewership at the end of our stream for that last hour was incredible. Thank you guys so much. We had an active amount of about 12 to 20 people watching us. That was very wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate your support. The more that continues to happen, the more that me and Jeremy are able to do these more often, and also, able to get more traction to this. So hopefully, that other people, we can get the bigger wrestling stars that you guys really want to see on here, like, people from AEW or WWE one day. That is our goal. But for the meantime, we will be, and as always, the platform that I wanted to do was also, Jeremy, was to feature the independent wrestlers, and give them an opportunity to tell a story. So this week, the independent wrestler of the week I am having is Johnny Moran of New York Championship Wrestling. He's quite the cowboy, it looks like. Just recently participated in a Texas death match, I think.
I love those.
What? I'm not really familiar with that. Do you know what that is? You know what? I'm just going to ask him. I'm going to ask him.
Yeah, you should.
But we had right before we started, the Captain Now. Let me tell you, thank you, the Captain Now, for your support, exclusively you, because you've been here every day, honestly, since you followed, watching the podcast and the wrestling streams, and I hope you stick around as well, because we've got a lot more content coming at you as well. The Sims, Cyberpunk, I've got probably some Call of Duty Black Ops, maybe some Ghost of Tsushima, all kinds of stuff coming at you guys. So, but he asked early. He asked early today, Jeremy. He said, "So is JeremyAT the Twitch name? I don't know if it's something different because I searched it on Twitch and I couldn't find him." So he's asking, do you also have your Twitch username as well?
Yeah, it's hold on, let me get it. I'm not on here as much. I'm just here for the podcast and to watch, AJ's stream sometimes. It's actually JeremyTay94. So JeremyTay94. That's the Twitch. So maybe I should just change this, but I kind of like my username here, so I may just update it later.
All right,
at a later date.
I like it too. It's always been that JeremyAT for a long time.
It's always. I think it's been that way since, for years. So
for years, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But good episode last night, guys. I'll be working the rest of the week on breaking down everything and getting that up on here. But you guys go back and watch the replay. We talked all through the week in review. If you like that sort of thing, that will continue to happen. We will go through all the shows weekly and then try to do a topic show at least every time. Tonight's topic is the women's division, right, of all of them. As you see by the graphics here, we've got NXT, the WWE, and AEW represented here. But first, you had some breaking news, I guess, that came out just a couple hours before we were about to go on stream. First, we can talk about that as well.
Well, probably everybody has read about it. If not, you haven't read. They already, WWE has already released where WrestleMania is going to be for the next few years. As you know, last year, due to 2020, due to the coronavirus, WrestleMania 36 was moved to the WWE Performance Center due to the crisis. So actually, April 10th and April 11th, over 2 nights, it goes back to Raymond James, which is big. So it'll be their first live crowd in 13 months.
So they are going ahead with WrestleMania at Raymond James this year, 2021?
Yep, 2 nights. 2 nights.
That's going to happen.
10th and April 11th. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Wow.
That is hell or high water.
Well, one, it's optimistic at the most. 2, it's also, I guess, the time has come. It's now, I guess. They're not afraid. That's very ballsy, I should say. But, I mean, I'm excited. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to go. Of course I'm going to go. I've never seen WrestleMania like this. I don't care if I'm going to have to wear a mask. I'm do it the proper way. So, I want to make sure that everyone out there also remembers that, God knows what's going to happen in the next few months from now, but you still need to remember that health is important as well. So if it's too much
Yes.
of a trek for you guys to get there, to get here, I should say, to this side of the country, to this side of the world,
Yeah.
please bear that in mind,
I would recommend, if you live close by, to go see it. If you have to travel across country, please, please, please give yourself enough time to be tested. Give yourself enough time to quarantine. We're still in the midst of a pandemic. I'm pretty sure because it's 2 nights, they're not expecting sold out crowds.
Right.
And it probably will be limited seating. So if you can make it, just please follow the CDC guidelines. Please wear masks. Don't be that guy. But yeah, as of right now, Raymond James will host WrestleMania over 2 nights, April 10th and April 11th. 2 nights of good action. And then 2022, hopefully the world will be back to where it was. They're going back to AT&T Stadium.
Yep.
Back to Arlington, Texas. And then 2023, they'll be heading to where it was supposed to be this year, to Los Angeles. So some good breaking news there, but I guess we're getting live crowds back on the WWE side of the fence. So
I did see some people were kind of pissed though that Los Angeles is going to be the last to take that long because they'd already promised it for next year. But things happen, shit happens.
Pandemic, Well, with the pandemic, you don't know day to day.
Yeah. So let's we really have to pray for just a better time this year in 2021 than it was last year, because you remember it was around this time where things started to fall apart. And then it was at the time that they're planning on doing, WrestleMania was really around the time that the things fell apart and everything was gone. So we're just praying for a more positive, more optimistic future this time around.
Well, I think it'll happen this year for sure. They've had meetings with DeSantis. They had meetings with all the other governors, and so the governors and mayors of the host city, of course, the governors of the state. So it looks like this year it's really happening, but you'll see a more downgraded WrestleMania, but you'll still get the full effect, I'm sure. But if you guys can make it down there, just do it. It's a great experience, but just be safe, please.
Yes, definitely be safe. Thank you to Iron Frosty PZ85 for that follow. Appreciate you. Welcome to the galaxy.
Woo! We should do like a little special sound effect.
So it was like you were reading my mind a little bit because today we did achieve affiliation, which means that we are available for bits and some subscriptions and things like that. So we are able to start doing that. Just give me a little bit of time to finish all of that stuff, and then one of the perks, what I'm getting at, Jeremy, one of the rewards is when people follow, when people subscribe, when people donate, there are little sound effects and things that come up. Yes. So I'm going to be showing them to Jeremy after the stream tonight, and I'll get his seal of approval on them. And then hopefully by the next stream, definitely by our next stream, you guys will be able to subscribe and all that things and stuff like that.
You guys are awesome. I think you guys are just the best. It's and I'm glad you guys are watching with us. And we have a lot. The best is yet to come. You guys remember that crazy lady earlier in the summer at the Republican conventions? Oh my God. We're not a political show, but
it's all right. It happens.
This is the most silly. I think she's so silly. But anyway, we got a lot to talk about.
The captain now, he says, I've never thought I would be supporting a topic I know nothing about. Well, that's what tonight's episode is about, Captain. We're going to be doing some education.
Cap, let me tell you, this is Wrestling 101 for experienced fans, okay? You don't have to know. Just join in the discussion. And we'll get you up to speed if you want. Let's get Cap on some Monday Night Raws together,
Yeah.
Some SmackDowns, NXT's, AEW's. Let's get him on track.
Captain, we earlier today I did set up a new robot that comes out and says what topics or wrestler do you want us to talk about. So that is just for everyone as well. If there's anything or person that you specifically want us to cover or talk about, please let us know.
Except for Bill Goldberg. If you guys know, I am anti-Goldberg, but if you want to talk about Goldberg, we can talk about Goldberg. Sorry if I have the tissue in my hand. My nose is a bit runny. Not COVID related, just allergy related. So excuse me if I. But tonight we're talking about the women's division, a very huge topic, a very good topic. You know.
You said you wanted to start at WrestleMania. Which one? Or no, I'm sorry, not WrestleMania. We wanted to start with Ronda Rousey going into WrestleMania. Is that correct?
Start there. That's a big, yeah. Guys, we're not doing this in chronological order.
No.
We're just talking about big moments,
topics.
If you want us to go in chronological order, we'll do that another episode. But this is just a impromptu conversation. Ronda Rousey, probably one of the biggest signings to WWE in a long time. But it was a long time coming. A lot of people, when she retired from the UFC, everybody was clamoring and was pointing, all directions were pointing to WWE. Ronda Rousey was always a wrestling fan. She looked up to Rowdy Piper. That's how she got her name, Ronda Rousey. Her showing up at the Royal Rumble in 2018 after the very first Women's Royal Rumble match was a game changer, which I believe 2018 is the biggest year in women's wrestling. I think it was a very flag-flying year for them. So, I mean, Ronda Rousey is the reason why women in WWE were featured for the first time as the main event of WrestleMania. But Ronda Rousey, guys, a big signing. If anybody doesn't know who she is, you might as well go look her up.
Yeah, and she always a big fan of wrestling. She was, and like Jeremy said, Roddy Piper. He passed away. I believe it was the weekend of one of her big championship fights when she was defending her UFC title. He passed away that weekend, and I remember her wearing his thing out to there. But someone had asked her if you would ever go to WWE, and she said yeah, and that was. Definitely, she wanted to definitely honor his legacy for sure. But
while building her own.
What I would say, why I say building her own legacy, doing something that maybe she wanted to achieve for a while. You know, who knows? It could have just been one of the things that she wanted to do as a dream based. And also, you know, the appeal itself. She knows she would sell out crowds. She knows she'd get the money behind it. Because she is Ronda Rousey, her name itself, and they let her that fucking theme song. How much money did they pay for that shit?
Oh yeah, to have Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, to have that. To have
I don't give a damn about my bad reputation.
I mean, it's a song that represents her.
Yeah. She does have a bad reputation. It's a good reputation, but she doesn't give a fuck either way.
She doesn't need to.
I mean, to go a little bit in the direction of Ronda Rousey. I mean, it took many years. This was years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this took a lot of try. The women's revolution really kicked off. I think Ronda Rousey was that stamp of approval that the women are a big part of the roster. You know, and we can go we could do a quick chronological order if anybody, you know, doesn't know what we're talking about, you know, new fans like Cap here. You know, what happened is that back in 2015, there was a match that happened on Monday Night Raw where the women were only given it was a tag match at that. They were only given about 1 minute and 30 seconds, it seemed like. Fans did not like that. They thought that was an abuse. The tides are turning. NXT's women's division was putting on 5-star classics during that year. So why aren't women on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown? Well, at the time the roster was one. Why aren't they getting the opportunities? Which hence gave the hashtag Give Divas a Chance.
Yeah. Which, by the way,
So
real quick, now that you already said it, I was waiting for you to say that. The fact that for that fucking long, they called them divas. You even went as far to have a championship called Diva. That was so awkward. So awkward seeing the Divas championship. Like, what the fuck is a diva? When I was that young
right.
watching it, and then when I was like a Divas championship, and you have the other women's championship, I was like, so what? The people going for the women's championships aren't diva, and the women, the other, vice versa, they're not good enough to be women. Like, what the fuck are you? That's just so gross. Just so, just nasty. I was never okay with that ever. I did not like that
TNA
ever.
TNA called their women knockouts,
Yeah.
as well too. But at the same time, yes. But in those days, now we're going back a little bit. So let's just go back and we'll get back to Ronda Rousey because I think we're in a place where we can actually get up to Ronda Rousey in 2018.
In 2018,
but
at this time, also to paint a story, they had Becky Lynch. She was shit hot, brand new, on fire, and you have to attest that to the nose breaking. Or am I confusing this too much? Did that happen later?
I think you are. I think you're going a little bit too far at the end. I think we barely got to Ronda Rousey, but we'll get there.
Okay.
2018 is a big topic to talk about. I just want to give background.
Yeah. Go ahead.
To now. So in the late 90s, in the WWF's Attitude Era, women were known as divas. They were known as more of like not really athletes. They were known as sex symbols.
Mm-hmm.
Big boobies, bikinis, bikini contests, water gun fights, bra and panties matches, you name it.
And the reasoning behind that was because they were at the competition with WCW.
And the Monday Night War was raging on.
And WCW was kicking ass. They were mopping the floor with them at the time. I remember seeing the documentary. They were talking about some of the ratings at some point. They were surpassed them, and it was just a long stretch of how far that they were surpassed. And things had to change. Vince knew things had to change. Whether that was for the good or the bad, in my opinion, I have to agree with Ted Turner when he says that Vince cheated to win, because I'm quoting him now. I'm quoting Ted Turner. These are not my words. He says Vince McMahon, you showed more tit. End quote. Those are not my words, but and it's true. Like Jeremy said, it's true. He did.
Well, titty sell. Sometime, porn is a $1 billion business, but I digress. Sex sells. I had a theater teacher tell me that sex sells, but don't sell sex. But it does. And the women at that time were the edgier content. And look up the names like Sable, look up Jacqueline. Those are the names that I think of. Ivory. Those are the women in that era.
And then you had D-Generation X and China and everybody running. They were basically just the bad boys of that time, and they were encouraging it, super encouraging it, sometimes over the line, and sometimes over the line of what Vince McMahon wanted as well. They kind of just ran with that a little bit too, and the crowd ran with that as well. The girls, they used to flash D-Generation X back in the day. It was a very different time, a very weird, sexist time.
Well, at that time, it wasn't seen as sexist.
Right, it wasn't. That's what I'm saying. Now we know, but
Now it would be known as misogynistic. It would be known as of course now. But back in 1997, you had shows like Jerry Springer that were on fire. Reality TV was coming hot.
Howard Stern.
That was kind of the first year of Howard Stern, Road Rules. The Real World just came out. You're looking at more edgier content that is put on national television. And that's when MTV was going towards a reality base. That was kind of the boom of reality television. Plus, late 90s were very rebellious time as far as, the grunge era, Nirvana, things of that nature. So, I don't think Nirvana, but I think that was a little bit before that. But, it was very punk rock at the time, 90s punk rock, grunge rock. So, you're seeing a shift in culture. But the women were seen as that. I think the women were very important because they brought that edgier content to the Attitude Era. Now, you saw that for many years going into 2005,
2006. Yeah,
even in the Ruthless
it
Aggression
bled way
era.
into that. It never stopped. It kept
Yeah, it
going and
never
going. It
stopped.
also evolved too
But
because they introduced
yeah,
around that time Playboy. The girls were
of
going and
course,
posing for Playboy.
Yeah, Tori Wilson was
Yep.
on Playboy. Sable was on Playboy. There were many of those gals who brought attention to the WWE, WWF at the time. It lasted, those edgier matches like bra and panties matches, bikini contests really lasted up until about 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And then after that, you really didn't see that again. But what you saw was the decline of the lady. What you were seeing is that every time a women's match came on, a lot of people would consider it bathroom breaks. Nobody cared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that happened for a long amount of time.
And he's not kidding either. If you would see crowds literally if as soon as the women's music came out, right, time to get up and go to get nachos. This must be the nacho match, the bathroom break match, and people fast forwarding it through a TV,
or not paying attention and saying, "Let me know when it's over. I'm going to go get a snack. I'm going to go get a drink. Y'all want anything?" type deal.
Yeah.
You see people on their phones at the time. And that went on for a long time, up until 2015. I forgot the exact date, but now we're up to current a bit, and I guess we can go in chronological order now, since we're already there. 2015, there was, let's go a little bit back. In 2014, NXT was one of the first live shows on the WWE network. You were seeing on NXT the next stars. It was their developmental brand. They were kind of the test dummies of the future live events for the WWE network. What you saw was Charlotte Flair. You saw Becky Lynch, Bayley, Sasha Banks come into the fray, giving 5-star matches that have never been seen.
They worked their tail off
in a women's match. Oh, yes.
They worked their tail off, and you could tell they did their homework. You could tell that they sat down and they really, honestly, they probably watched all the best 5-star matches that men have ever put on, and some of the stuff from the early 80s with the women that when, they probably, and they paid attention to that. They studied that. They realized that works, and they realized that it doesn't all have to be looks, because now people are paying attention to not only your looks, but they're paying attention to the fact that you're doing skillful things in the ring, doing crazy things.
Athleticism, having great psychology in matches. It was a different era. Women were putting on a show.
They were killing it.
Putting on. You remember those days when you would watch on the network, Full Sail would pop. Full Sail would go crazy for these matches. And, it led to some very great 5-star matches. It's partially what put NXT on the map. But that was a good year for NXT, too, because you saw Finn Balor come into, NXT. Hideo Itami wasn't coming. You were seeing just an influx, a shift in the business. That's what I'm saying. But let's stick to the women. So then, 2015 hits. And there was a tag team match. I forgot who it was. And it's a tag team match, guys. It only lasted 1 minute and 30 seconds or something along those lines. It was the entrances were longer than the match.
They always were. They always were.
But a couple hours later on Twitter, people were like, hey, this is totally unfair. If the women on NXT are having great matches, why can't these women? So there goes the hashtag Give Divas a Chance, in which Vince McMahon about an hour later said, we got you, we're listening, or something like that. We hear you, we're listening.
And you also have women like Paige at this time too.
Yeah, Paige.
Who was pissed off her coming
Oh
from the
yes,
United Kingdom over here to the States, she was
just to be
pissed
treated like
off
that.
she was like, what? Because what we do over in the UK is different. So what are y'all doing over here? And she was also wrestling with
It,
people that honestly, with women that looked so different than her, that she had never seen that before in her life, really.
I think she knew what she was signing up for because a lot of the women did know what they were signing up for when they became professional wrestlers. That if you did make it to the WWE, you probably weren't going to get enough TV time. Sasha Banks even admitted that if I had to do bra and panties matches, so be it,
Yeah.
as long as I'm on TV. But well, Paige is actually one of the seeds in the women's revolution evolution because she came to New Orleans and she knocked up, who was it, AJ Lee,
Yeah.
who had a historic title reign. She knocked her off, and the people loved that. So she was one of those.
It was hardcore. They were
Those
like, wow, this is different. This is hardcore.
She's punk rock. This is different, right? And the Smoothie King Center at that time went absolutely berserk for Paige. So that's great.
And
But
she
then
helped
you're
get rid
seeing,
of the word diva in general too, because
sure,
she was
they
uncomfortable with it. She was like, I think what was that promo she cut? She was like, I'm not a diva, I'm a woman.
right. It's those promos that really did it, and
Yeah.
kind of Stephanie McMahon. And then we're going to move a little forward. So they bring Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, not yet Bayley, because she just won. I think no, she didn't. They kept her behind in NXT, but they brought those three to the main roster, which changed the game. And I think that was kind of the shift. But thank NXT for that shift to the women's revolution. So now what you're looking at is you're moving forward and you're seeing great matches from the women. You're seeing them getting more TV time. But the one match I think really stamped this, Austin, that really stamped the women's revolution at the time was Sasha Banks and Bayley at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, the first one.
That was it. That was the match.
To see 16,000, and now they had to add seats to the Barclays Center that year because the demand was so high to see NXT. NXT is the reason why people believed in pro wrestling again at the time. But that match between Bayley and Sasha Banks, to me, changed everything for just the dynamic of the women. It made you think a little more that the women can be the main event eventually. And they tore the house down. It's good. It's good wrestling. That match still, to me, remains one of the best matches of the 2010s. And in the top 5 best matches on a pay-per-view or a network special. Going forward, you see more match time. You see Charlotte winning the Divas Championship. But then we fast forward to WrestleMania 32 in Arlington, Texas.
Okay.
They get rid of diva. That's the day the word diva became a bad word. They became superstars. They became equal with men. Okay? They retired that stupid Bratz doll title called the Divas Championship.
It did look like a Bratz doll. I'm glad you said that because it looked...
It looked like Malibu Barbie became a wrestler, okay?
It did. It looked awful. And here's the thing.
It was terrible.
One of my favorite things as a wrestling fan has always been championship belts. I love championship belts so much. And I love the design of them. I love when they come out with new ones. And I love when, but the point I'm making is it's shitty when you see a bad one because it's like, that's just, what prestige are you holding now? It looks like shit. And the Divas Championship always looked like shit. It literally looked like you could buy it at Target. Like,
yeah, Right, Malibu Championship doll, Malibu Barbie. It was very Malibu Barbie, very, very Bratz doll. Don't like it, never liked it. We can leave that in the past. But you see them unveil the new WWE Women's Championship. It rechristens back to the Women's Championship. And that night at WrestleMania, you see Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Sasha Banks in their first WrestleMania appearance, mind you, have one of the best matches of the night, and it was great from that point on. And you go into the draft as well too. 2016, you saw the brand extension draft where they separated Raw and SmackDown again. And then you see the SmackDown Women's title be introduced, and Becky Lynch being the inaugural holder. Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks having great matches, what led to the first ever Women's Hell in a Cell, which was absolutely incredible.
And they took way too long. First of all, far too long to even for all these matches to even be considered. They should have done this a long time ago. Long time ago.
Breaks.
Yeah.
There were bathroom breaks. Nobody was really invested in it. So why should Vince McMahon be invested in it? And I'm not saying that I don't agree with you, because yes, it is a long time coming, but how can you invest your time into something when something's not really when the audience is not very invested, But when they gave that hashtag, it seems like, okay, now they're invested. Let's go ahead and move forward. But you see that in 2016, you hit a bit of a drought in 2017, but what you see in 2017 is the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which, oh, God. That's one match that I think I could just slap somebody.
They made a mockery of it, man. They make a mockery of it. They really do, because this is the opportunity now, the first time in history, for something that was one of the craziest things growing up. The opportunity, the freaking the hype behind the Money in the Bank match, the freaking what's the point I'm trying to make? Basically, like, the appeal of it, the words on the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry, but basically, you never knew when it was going to happen. The element of surprise. You never knew when they were going to go in and cash in the Money in the Bank. For what people don't know what that means that you have the opportunity now to offer a championship match at any time, any place. So literally, like, right after a champion would defend something, Edge would run out, and I say Edge because he did it, I think, one of the most. He cashed in Money in the Bank and would win the championship. So this is the first time they were trying to do this for the women. And in order to do this, you need to climb the ladder, and you get up to the top, and they turned this into comedy. They turned this into joke.
Well, they had, so if anybody doesn't know, the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match happened at Money in the Bank 2017. What Austin was trying to make is that the concept of the Money in the Bank briefcase is, if you didn't win the Royal Rumble, someone was bound to win the Money in the Bank. Okay, so that briefcase you can cash in anytime, any place for 1 year. That was typically a men's match. It's first women's. There's a gentleman by the name of James Ellsworth, God bless his soul, and he was accompanied by Carmella. And so what happens is
James motherfucking Ellsworth.
Oh well, what a guy. Anyway. So James Ellsworth climbs the ladder, retrieves the briefcase, and throws it down to Carmella.
So, and this is my biggest gripe with this shit, because you didn't even let the women have the opportunity to do the fucking thing that they were signed up to do in the fucking first place. Right. Instead, you had a dude do it for her. What is that? What picture are you painting there?
Well, kind of mounted in controversy, of course. They're trying to create controversy, and like I said, I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just trying to think on their level of how they're trying to do it. But what gets me is that the rules say whoever gets it first. Technically, Carmella didn't win because she didn't go up there and retrieve it herself.
Yeah, just first of all, so her lackey did instead.
Exactly. You're muddling the rules. in a sense. So it's kind of like, well, she really didn't win, because if you look at it, she really didn't, and James didn't either. It's a moot win. You literally grabbed it. Someone who's not even a participant in the match, you literally grab the briefcase and you just hand it to somebody. That's not how ladder matches work.
No.
I'm sorry. It's the first one who climbs the ladder, who's eligible and qualified in the match to retrieve the briefcase.
And they take the history away from Carmella. They take away from the history of whoever was going to slated to win that match.
It really watered
you took
down
that moment
the
from them.
Significance. And I can agree with you wholeheartedly that it did like water the significance and the history and the weight of the history of that moment, which led to the next Tuesday. I think it was the next Tuesday or the week after on SmackDown Live, they had a rematch. So you're trying to correct your issue when the damage is already done.
And now they take this away from the pay-per-view slot, which people, by the way, pay money to watch.
I mean, I only pay $9.99 for it, so it wasn't really...
Right.
If it was like a $54.99 pay-per-view, I would have...
Which we used to have to pay when we were kids, by the way.
Right, and I would, I would have a little bit of a...
But no, but they take it away from the pay-per-view, and they're supposed to say, oh, this is the pay-per-view, and I understand that, that it's not always the supposed way to do that, but you could have done something different. You could have had the opportunity to make history, like I said, but now instead you do this on SmackDown, and then you get everyone's hopes up that maybe it's going to be a little different, that the match is going to be slightly different, or it's going to be a little bit, maybe it'll be someone else that wins, maybe we'll actually get a real winner this time. That's not what happened.
No, not at all. They were always on Carmella to be the first. They did a move where they were trying to do some damage control in that match, but I mean, the damage was already done. So she already has the briefcase. She already has what she needs. And so, I mean...
And Carmella, she is money, man. She's always had a strong character. She's always been good. Mm-hmm. She's always been in my opinion, one of the better female wrestlers, especially after she stopped wrestling scared. And I think we can owe that to Nikki Bella, or which one of the Bella twins beat the living fuck out of her. Basically...
One of them.
They beat the shit out of her. How they beat the shit out of Mysterio. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
How Dominic got into the business. They did the same thing to Mella too. They gave her the welcome to the business thing, and she proved that she could hang, because at the time, like Jeremy was saying, the women were doing more hardcore shit, like women's Hell in a Cell. So she proved that she could hang, and then after that, they kind of put a water out on the little fire that she had there with the Money in the Bank match. And even after she wins it and they give her the title, give her the briefcase, it still diluted her character again, because I was like, well, she didn't really fucking do anything. No,
it's just, like I said, it's creative damage control. It's just, that's all I can really say is creative damage control. You're trying to rectify a very stupid mistake, but the damage has been done. And like you said, if they would have went with a whole different route to the match, that'd been good. But at the same time, probably not. But I will have to say this, because I can't believe I skipped this. In 2016, SmackDown had some really good content with the women. A lot more edgier content for the women. It was pretty good. It was that good edgy that you want. You had Natalia, you had a good women's division over there at that time. That was very intriguing. But I
didn't bring that up because I was, know me, that anything history-wise that really happened in 2016, I'm still catching up on, because I was on the planet Earth, but no communication to the rest of the outside world during that year, pretty much.
Oh, for what, if anybody is wondering what he means, he was deployed. He was in the service, so he didn't have the WWE Network. He relied on me for everything. So.
I did, yeah. I remember. I remember asking him stuff, and honestly, me and you connected over this again too. So it was honestly a little blessing in disguise. But yeah. Well, you brought up. It's weird. You brought up Natalia the same time that the captain now did. He said he went and looked up Natalia Neidhart. she's she's pretty awesome. She's she is going off of the Neidhart thing, and rest in peace to her father for passing away last year or
Oh
2 years
yeah,
ago as well. But
yeah,
she definitely
that
had some
hurts.
growing into the business to do as well. I think they
Yeah,
slapped on the Heart Foundation thing on her way too hard. Um,
yeah. I mean, when you look at people who are generational superstars, it's kind of hard to
she's trying
make
to
your
live.
own
She's
path.
trying to fill. She was trying to fill the boots of not only her father's but Bret Hart's at the same time, and then she's got to worry about her husband, um,
Right,
Tyson, whatever his name was.
Tyson Kidd,
Yeah,
or yeah, yep,
she had a rough go there,
or
Captain
T.J.
Now, but she
Wilson,
definitely came into her own, and now I think she just goes by Natalia. They call her the best of all time now, the Boat,
the boat,
which I don't like.
the
I don't like
boat.
that name. It just sounds weird every time I hear it when the commentators, "Here comes the boat." I'm like, oh, is there a boat coming out? Who is? Are we getting a new boat salesman or something?
Hey, if they compete at WrestleMania, we could get a boat
She could
entrance.
come out with the boat. That's right.
I
That's
mean,
right.
now we're getting WrestleMania in an actual facility where you can have big entrances again.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so we're there. We move on. 2016, a very solid year for the women. You know, they're coming to their own. And you go into 2017, which we already talked about, the 2017 Money in the Bank women's Money in the Bank ladder match. You see Carmella on the top of her game. Charlotte wins the title for the 459th time. Not very much a big year for women's wrestling other than the Money in the Bank ladder match. But the real pivotal turning point for the women's evolution is 2018. And in 2018, you see for the very first time the first ever women's Royal Rumble match. If anybody doesn't know what the Royal Rumble match is, it's probably one of the most prestigious battle royals in history. The winner of the match gets a world title opportunity at WrestleMania. It's been dominated by men for 30 years. So having it be the first and to main event that year's Rumble was pretty good.
That was something I would have never thought we would get.
I knew it was eventually. I thought, they would have executed it right away.
Mm-hmm.
In 2017, I'm not sure what the lag in the year was. Maybe they were just like, maybe we don't have enough women superstars, which they don't. So I'm not sure where the logistical error was.
They almost had to scramble really to find 30 women.
Oh, they did.
And that's, and that's upsetting a little bit too, because it's like you have to figure out which men not to use, but now you need to scramble to figure out which women to use. You're doing something wrong there, if in my opinion, of equality, just for a second, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the men's roster sometimes is filled with people that you haven't even seen on TV in the last 3 fucking years. And then the females don't even have anyone that, they're not signing any new females. They hardly ever do back then.
Right. We're in a position where where there's not a lot, because you had a lot of Hall of Famers, a lot of legends come back. You had NXT superstars. You had and you had your main roster superstars. So, I mean, it's history making. At the same time, it's kind of like, okay, there's very little on your actual roster, to use. But, through it all, it was cool. It was cool to see Trish Stratus. It was cool to see Tori Wilson in there.
And the match was good, too. It was a banger.
It was great.
It was great.
It was wonderful. Sasha Banks actually lasted a long time. I think she lasted like 45 to 50 minutes in that match.
And it came down to the last two were what again? It was one of the Bella twins?
It was one of the Bellas and Asuka.
Yeah.
Asuka ended up becoming the winner of the first ever women's Royal Rumble match.
And I liked what they did there. There was a lot of drama in the last 10 minutes of that match. It almost you forgot you were watching the Rumble for a second. For me at least, I was like, oh damn, one of these, in order for these women to win, they gotta hit the floor. I forgot that for a second because the Bella Twin and fucking Asuka, they were doing so good in the ring. That was awesome to see that at the end there, and then they go over the top rope. They're fighting out on the edge there, and I think everyone in that arena was kind of looking forward, like, what's going on here? What are they about to do? Because you've got at this point probably one of the best females that WWE's ever had in the form of Nikki Bella, and then you've got Asuka at this time, who's superstar in Japan, fucking one of the hottest things to ever come through NXT, and one of the best champions they ever had. She was so dominant, and her character was so dominant. They painted her to be so dominant that they didn't even have anybody take the belt off of her. She just gave it back. So when she comes to the main roster, they continue that dominance, and everyone in the arena kind of thought for maybe just 1 second that Nikki Bella was going to win the Royal Rumble. But everyone knew it was definitely going to be Asuka, especially when it came down to the last two. They're like, okay, yep, it's definitely going to be Asuka here.
Yeah, Asuka, like you said, one of the very best. I mean, we can even do an episode on Asuka by herself, but Asuka had the hot streak, as you said, had that hot streak. She hadn't been defeated since October 2015. That is 3 years.
And the crowd were eating her up. They were eating her up, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But at any rate, she wins the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. You see Charlotte Flair, who was at the time SmackDown Women's Champion. You see at the time Alexa Bliss, who was the Raw Women's Champion. They're both in the ring, and Asuka has to make her decision of who she wants to wrestle at WrestleMania. But all of a sudden, you hear Ronda Rousey's music, Bad Reputation, hit,
because
and something that seemed like it was a long time coming has finally come to fruition.
And everyone in WWE, they definitely fooled most of that arena. I think everyone was getting ready to stand up. They were probably going to the bathroom, and you hear that music play, and most people are like, huh? And then you see Hot Ronda on the thing. That's, the tagline they put, Hot Ronda. And then they had Rowdy come up, and then you finally see her come out, and everyone just lost their goddamn mind.
Well, yeah, it's one of those moments in history where you can look and say the women's division is actually here. It's important because you're having someone who comes from the outside world of MMA. Not many people from the MMA world has transitioned into WWE. Ken Shamrock did. Ronda Rousey being the second.
The second one, yeah, after Shamrock, yeah. But I
Ken
do have
Shamrock.
some gripes here, though, with how they did this, because they could have debuted her either the next day or during the Rumble match. But it was weird that they did it right after that they ended the show on it. And a lot of the female talent, they went on the social media, they went on, and they told a lot of their fans that they were pissed that Ronda kind of overshadowed that moment. And they also overshadowed Asuka. They took that moment away from Asuka.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree. Well, agree and disagree with you on many areas. If she would have debuted in the Royal Rumble, she probably would have had to win, and Asuka's streak would have been broken. Okay?
But they could have had her not win the Rumble. Like, she still could have come out and had,
But people would have still been pissed if she was eliminated.
Yeah.
It's kind of a...
It's kind of one of those things like, what do you do here?
Right, what do you do here? And I'm not trying to defend, because I can totally see where you're coming from, but if you're looking from a booking perspective, it would have raised. And if you did it the next night, that would have been great, but, at the same time, here's Ronda Rousey saying, look who's here.
But it also was really confusing, though. It was confusing, though, and also because she walked out and she pointed at the WrestleMania sign, which is reserved for someone to do that either after they win the Rumble or significant enough that in their story that they're going to submit their chance to be at WrestleMania. And they have no problem with her ever pointing at the sign. It just not was the appropriate time to do it right there, in my opinion, because that's why I say that they took that away from Asuka, because she went out there and pointed and awkwardly at the sign, and
Well, as well too,
And
And like I
confused
said,
people were like, well, is she
it's a
gonna go to WrestleMania to wrestle for the title? They confused
it,
people.
it raised a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
It did, but that can be a good thing too.
Yeah, it could be.
But you're having someone come in and rain on someone's parade and literally telling them, I'm going to take a piece of your pie.
Yeah.
Because I'm Ronda Rousey and I can do that. That's what all they're saying. I'm Ronda Rousey. I'm the baddest thing. I was bad in, UFC, and now I'm here. And
The
I'm
problem is though that the delivery of Ronda Rousey after that, so we didn't see her very much for a little while. She came in. They had that the contract signing with her, Triple H, Kurt Angle, Stephanie McMahon. Which, by the way, that segment with Kurt Angle, like they were saying that Kurt Angle like was weird because he had the flu and like wasn't feeling well and was just out there like running his mouth. I was like, did you guys just like write that 5 minutes before it happened? But either way, it still delivered well because they were like, you know what, trying to set up something here, set up something good. But we do get the intergender match between Triple H and his wife,
the mixed
Stephanie,
tag match,
mixed
I
tag
was there
match.
for that contract signing actually.
Yeah.
For that segment at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and I mean, it was a pretty big match. I mean, you're looking at it did set up a pretty good debut for Ronda Rousey, but let's backtrack. Asuka did eventually choose Charlotte Flair, which will head into WrestleMania 34 in a second. How pivotal that was in women's wrestling.
And it was super pivotal because what they did here was honestly just shock the world. They shocked everyone because they told the story that Asuka is this undefeatable force, that she's never lost in anything. They even went as far as the mixed tag team tournament they were doing. They had her win that too. They were painting her as the ultimate, essentially she was Goldberg at this point, if you really think about it.
A lot better
than Goldberg. But essentially, in the storyline, she's essentially Goldberg, and Charlotte is the champ. And how the story goes at this point is that she goes and takes down the champ at WrestleMania. She wins the Rumble. She has the moment of her life. She's now the undefeated champion. But they went with the other way and had Charlotte win instead. And that one was, I think, a huge sting there. And I agreed with what they did. For a second, I was like, no. They actually went ahead and broke Asuka at WrestleMania. They did that. They broke her streak at Mania. And then for a second, I was like, wow, because now this kind of, it kind of showed that she wasn't that invincible force that they said she was, that she was just a little bit more human. And it allowed her to honestly to start coming into her character a little better now that burden, that ghost of her always having to win was behind her.
Absolutely. I can wholeheartedly agree with that. I was there in New Orleans for that match. Probably one of the best women's match to take place at a WrestleMania. It was very good.
Yeah, they tore the house down with that one.
Have incredibly stupid good chemistry
yeah.
with one another. It's like they gel so well. It's like she's the Ricky Steamboat to, her Ric Flair. It's one of those type of scenarios, and they can wrap it up in the ring anytime. So and it'll still be a good match. I was very shocked that they went with the decision to end Asuka's streak, because my breath kind of went not as much as Undertaker's streak ending,
right.
But it was kind of like a really.
And some of the fans were like, "Wow, you guys broke another streak at Mania."
Well, it's the bat, and I said this in one of my. If you follow me on Instagram, go back to my WrestleMania 34 stories. It's still up there. But I said the Superdome has bad juju when it comes down to streaks, because it's like you saw, and it's very important streaks too. It's not like just, okay, I've been here 6 months and it's a 6-month streak. You're talking like long-term streaks that are being broken. So, you're looking at Undertaker, whose 21 straight win WrestleMania streak ends. And then you're looking at this, how many days was it? Was like it over 800 days or something that she was undefeated?
Yeah.
and up until that point, and it's like these are big, big, streaks. These are not 2-day streaks. These are years.
The longest. Yeah,
And
that's crazy. She
yeah,
went that whole time without ever losing.
it's not WrestleMania. It's the Superdome in New Orleans. So the next time they're there and someone has a streak, please know that you're losing that night.
And she tapped out. She tapped out too.
Yeah,
of all
but
things.
I'd rather have. I hate submissions. I really do. I think maybe natural selection would have been a way to end it. A pinfall victory would be a little more. I think it's just for someone that big. I don't know. Submission wins to me are. I don't know. In professional wrestling, they can get a little weird in circumstances.
Like you said, though, Rousey, she debuts that night as well, and it's a good match, a good debut match. They sold the thing that she broke Stephanie McMahon's arm with the arm bar.
Right.
So now this is where it got a little weird, though, because it's interesting you just bring up submissions now, too, because now she is using something that we all know in real life to be one of probably the most painful things that you can do to a person's arm.
Mm-hmm.
And in real life, like literally, you will tap instantly. She's now using that, and she's like breaking the norm with it. She's like, it's showing she had to fake now the arm bar and fake it in a different way, and it just never looked right to me that she did that. I was like, why didn't they just do something else as like her main point? I was like, I know they're trying to go off of the UFC thing, but it just never looked right, because now with people that watch her in UFC and other UFC fans, it looked strange every time that she applied it, because that she couldn't, if she looked like she was going to sell it the correct way, she could potentially hurt somebody.
Yeah, I mean, automatically she would have broke someone's arm. I mean, look at her previous UFC fights. I mean, those arms were snapped. Literally, you had no choice but to tap.
So now, and she has some training, but not that too much training. But I just think she never got it. It never clicked for her in the ring. Every time she was in the ring for me, as I watched it, it just did not look good. It did not look right.
You have a point, but at the same time, in some ways, it was effective.
Yeah.
But I mean, you wouldn't know if there are a lot of people who probably didn't know who Ronda Rousey is, besides folks who watch UFC. Maybe they've heard of her, but they wouldn't have known her submission.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're fans like us, we can critique that all day. But still, I mean, yeah, there's some things that didn't click to her.
And they pushed her to the head of the line, essentially. They said that she was the rookie. They pushed her to the head of the line, and I knew that was going to happen. We all did. We all knew that was going to happen.
Everybody knew that. It shouldn't be a surprise to people when you think of a star like that she's just going to wait her turn. No. She's not going to wait her turn.
So yeah,
that match was very good.
It was.
I'll tell you what, the whole Superdome that night was so into it. They were into it. I mean, there was not a person sitting down. They were active. They were yesing. They were going crazy for Ronda Rousey, and it was just that atmosphere for that match was so good. I wish you were there, because you would. Thank goodness the roof of the Superdome didn't come off, because people were very engaged.
Yeah. I bet. I mean, and rightly so. She is Ronda Rousey. At the end of the day, she is Ronda Rousey.
Surprised too that she had a very good match in the first gate in. Her first match in.
It is a good one. For you guys, go back and watch that debut if you haven't seen it. It is a good match. Nonetheless, I'm just saying that yes, the critique of the armbar comes from me that it just never looked right to me. But also, once they gave her the title and she got the championship and everything, because what happened there? Who won Money in the Bank that year? Was that Bayley?
No. So we'll have to back up a little. I'm sorry, I keep backing up a little bit, because that's the only way it makes sense to me. So Ronda doesn't have her. I don't think she has her first real singles match until Money in the Bank 2018.
Yep.
That's the night that Alexa Bliss won.
That's right. She wins Money in the Bank, and she's doing the behind the head thing with the contract like she used to do with the title. That's right.
Yeah, So Nia Jax was the Raw Women's Champion at the time. Unsafe Nia Jax.
We're going to talk about that after we come back from break with how dangerous she is, because she's important to the story as well of how dangerous she is.
But so they have that match, and it's subpar, But
watching that match too, you're watching now. Honestly, at this point, this match is very unsafe in my opinion, because you have Nia, who is basing off her power. She's still a little unsafe. She still has had problems with hurting wrestlers in the past because of her size, and she's honestly that the whole that she doesn't know her own strength thing it comes way into play here. And then you have Ronda Rousey, who is undertrained. The two men in the ring together, it scared the shit out of me for a second, and also for a second I was like, Nia, please don't hurt Ronda. Please don't hurt her, because at the end of the day, Ronda, she doesn't know what she's doing compared to people that have been doing it forever, and especially her coming from the Samoan family,
Yeah. Totally agree with you on that one. But that night, Alexa Bliss cashes in Money in the Bank, pins Nia Jax, becomes Raw Women's Champion.
Yeah.
And then that leads to a match at SummerSlam with Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss, which Alexa's good at selling. Alexa's good at faking a broken arm too. My God.
They capped it now. UFC is Ultimate Fighting Championship. It's like mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
So she sells the broken arm too, but also here that's so this is where officially Ronda now takes the title from Alexa. They played into the story. Also, Alexa took that the stuff from the Royal Rumble where everyone was saying that she came in and overshadowed the moment, that she was a rookie overshadowing a moment. She took that and put that into the story between them two that they were playing out on TV, that Ronda was the overhyped rookie and that Alexa had been here forever. And then Ronda Ronda's starting to freaking go after Alexa's size, tell her that she's way stronger than her, all that other stuff. So it was fun, a playful rivalry between the two of them. I think it was, if anyone was going to give the title to Ronda, I think it definitely should have came from Alexa, because it was good, I thought.
They needed a way to get the belt onto Ronda. They needed to get that on her.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about it. And Alexa had the Money in the Bank briefcase, and they just said, okay, we'll just have her. And 1, 2, 3, and then that's our champion.
And I also
they had Ronda Rousey as champion in mind.
And I also think they did that too, so they didn't have to worry about at any time while Ronda was champion her being cashed in on.
That's true.
Yeah. So they didn't have to worry about having to write an angle for that.
Unsuccessful.
Yeah.
It would have been unsuccessful.
So the Money in the Bank match, Captain, now is there is a suitcase of money, but no. So what it's a suitcase, and inside has a contract, and on that contract allows you to activate a world championship match. So they are multiple people fighting for it. It's hung above the ring. They climb up all the way to the top of the ladder, unhook the briefcase, and you get to keep it until you're choosing of your choice, one whole year up until the next pay-per-view.
Right, so it's like May to May, July to July, depending on when the pay-per-view is.
So the previous year, Mela cashes in on Charlotte, right? Right before this, Mela cashes in after WrestleMania.
Yep.
So because of that, Money in the Bank was coming up right after WrestleMania, Captain, and Carmella, she still had the briefcase. So what they did was that the SmackDown right after Mania, right? Mm-hmm. The SmackDown after Mania, they had Carmella cash in on Charlotte Flair, and Carmella took the championship there. So it took she had that almost for that whole year. She held on to the briefcase.
Yeah.
So they had they had to get rid of the briefcase so they could get the new briefcase. Is was the point I'm trying to make. So they get the new briefcase and they immediately get rid of it by having it cashed in the same night that Alexa climbed the ladder and took it.
Yep.
So,
same, very, very same night.
Basically, they were kind of like 2018. They were like, we don't need to worry about the Money in the Bank right now. And honestly, from then on, the Money in the Bank never got back to normal. And we can talk about that in one show if we want.
Yeah,
but
the history of the Money in the Bank, the rise and fall.
The rise and fall of Money in the Bank. Yeah. That just gave me
but that leads to
they give Ronda what everyone wanted and what the crowd knew was going to happen, that everyone in the fan base behind the scenes knew what was going to happen, and give her the championship finally. And
absolutely, they give it to her, and
that also pissed off talent too, because now they said that she was definitely ahead of the line because I would have been I've been very pissed off. I would have been pissed off if I was them too,
Well, I mean, the namesake of Ronda Rousey, I mean, you can be mad all you want, but if you see the name Ronda Rousey, that's dollar signs. So no matter how, and this is just anywhere, in any sport, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If your namesake, like, we'll go with your boy Tom Brady, that's money.
Yeah, he is
His
money.
His name alone is money. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers seemed like they put up everything they had and gave that to him. Gave all that money to him. That's the same thing with Ronda Rousey. We're going to make you the big star because that's who you are. And wrestling fans are like that. They're like, oh, well, Sasha. Oh, well, Bailey. Oh, well, this. But to be honest with you, and I hate to burst people's bubble, but that's Ronda Mother Rousey.
Yeah, she is.
That woman got a fast pass because of her name alone.
Yes.
So sorry about it.
And the reputation also that she had as being basically a second generation to Roddy Piper at this point, if you think about it. Because she's alluding to him, she's wearing his stuff, her T-shirts based off of him. So it's almost as if she was like Piper's daughter, the way that they were portraying her on television, which I kind of liked. I liked that because it kept Roddy Piper alive.
Well, yeah, I mean, but she asked him for the blessing, and he obliged.
Yeah.
So, that's fine. She did keep the Hot Rod's legacy alive, of course. I can totally agree. But was she Roddy Piper?
No.
But Roddy Piper's mic skills far surpass hers. But that's another story from another day. But we're kind of.
We're gonna go on break now, right here. But when we come back, what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, you know what, Captain? We will do a Royal Rumble show right before I say that. Royal Rumble is a topic I know a bit of, not specific wrestlers, but some stuff I'm comfortable with. I would like to do a Royal Rumble show eventually too, because it's always been my favorite match personally. Always been one of my favorite moments of the year. But yeah, so after we come back for break, I would like to talk about Nia Jax and why she's important to this and why I'm dangerous. I'm not saying dangerous. Dangerous in the fact of her being her character. No. I mean dangerous in the fact that she hurts people in real life and on accident.
Before we get to Nia Jax, we must talk about the main event of WrestleMania. We have to talk about, we're missing a chunk. We'll get there, but I think it's very important that we talk about Becky Lynch. I think Becky Lynch is very important to talk about right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was going to bring up the whole point because Nia punching Becky essentially,
let's
started everything.
Talk about. Oh yeah, of
Yeah.
course, I get that, and that's an important topic. So we're not out of the 2018 woods
No, no,
yet,
no, no, no.
but we have to talk about Becky Lynch and her the SummerSlam slap
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, and then we'll segue into all that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to step on your toes. I
No, no,
just
no.
think it's
But
very
what I'm
important
saying
that
is yeah.
backstory.
The basically what I want to say is the Becky Lynch injury, the injury that she received was significant enough that it changed a lot of things that year. But yeah, we'll get into it.
Oh yeah, we're coming, guys. Coming
All
in
right.
hot.
We're gonna take just a quick 5 or so minutes. We'll be right back. Actually, we'll come right back at the 10-minute mark, so about 7 minutes or so.
All right.
All right, guys, we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Sorry about that, just took a couple extra minutes. But we are going to, like Jeremy was putting in the chat while we were gone, the Randy Orton and John Cena story. Randy Orton sounds familiar to you, Captain, because honestly, when it comes to the last 20 years of wrestling, it's always been those two guys. Orton and Cena have been, the hero and villain story for a long time. Good versus evil was them played out for a long time. The basic hero story played out with Cena and Orton for a long time. They started together, and you can say they definitely finished together too. But Orton is a third generation superstar. Cowboy Bob Orton, his father. But
His second, probably a prolific, one of the most prolific wrestlers in the 80s.
Yep.
Along with Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper in those days. So, pretty big names.
Yeah, pretty big.
Big topic next week, guys. Very big. Want to pack a lunch for that one.
Yeah, if you guys want to do a watch along, we'll do like live reactions to what's happening at the Rumble as well. The Captain, if you want to watch the Rumble live, unfortunately we cannot stream that, like the actual view of the Rumble on here. We can have a little bit of the audio playing, but that's just one way to get shut down if we actually stream the view. So we will stream our reactions. We'll talk about it. We'll be talking about it. Me and Jeremy will be watching it live. I believe if you've never used the WWE Network before, you get your free pay-per-view for the month free. The first
and if
month.
you like what you see, you can subscribe to it every month. It's not that expensive either. It's just $9.99.
Yeah, and they've got some really cool shit on there too, like some documentaries and other stuff like that. Stories about back in the day in WCW, a bunch of different stuff. But anyways, yeah, so the reason, this is what I want to talk about Nia Jax. Nia Jax is related to The Rock by, what do you call it? Marriage, is that true? Or she's in the family somehow? But she's
in the family. I can't get into the logistics of their family.
Their cousins somehow. The wrestling family is ginormous among them, and there's just a lot of them in there. The Usos, Roman Reigns, The Rock, everybody. Everybody's in there. But she's a part of that, and a lot of that. She used, I think, a little bit of her name to get in there as well, and she's a much larger female than most women. About, I think they used to tell her weight sometimes when she came out, when she first started wrestling. They used to say that she was 290 something pounds. I think at one point, almost close to 300.
Yeah.
They would talk about that all the time, which is a little uncomfortable as well, given the demographic that they were appealing to. Because they were using her weight as a storyline at one point. That she was
that was for a WrestleMania storyline.
That was uncomfortable too, but
I think their intentions
for the bullying thing, but
I just think, for a lot of audience members, it's just like, okay, I go through this too much, to want to just relive it. But it was a redemptive story.
But she, at the time and even now, she was just a little untrained. She didn't know her strength, how she has it, and when she threw punches, they had a little oomph behind them, and she hurt some people's. When she tossed people, some girls had a harder time getting up, and it came a little bit of a problem. It still kind of is a little bit of a problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, the safety of the athlete, you're supposed to protect one another whenever you're wrestling. You have to protect one another. It's very easy in professional wrestling to get hurt. Accidents do happen.
All the time.
That's why you have to be very, very, very careful. You can knock a tooth out without even, meaning to do it. I mean, these moves, guys, are very, very real. They may not connect at times. It is choreographed. We can agree on that. But when things go wrong, I mean, they go wrong. It can go south real quick.
As far as to say, God rest his soul, Owen Hart fell from a distance that was unsafe. He was unsafe. Show production protocols led to his death in the ring, in the middle of a show.
But that's more of a technical protocol.
Yeah,
I'm
but
talking
still,
about.
it could accidents happen. It still happened
Oh
on
yeah.
live TV.
Oh, it could happen to the best of us. That's
Yeah.
why, it's good to look both ways while crossing the street and look both ways twice before doing it.
WrestleMania
But
captain, he says, what's the difference between WrestleMania and WWE? WWE is the parent company. WrestleMania is one of the shows they put on that's essentially the Super Bowl of wrestling. Skullroot, yeah, Steve Austin's neck. That's right. Steve Austin hurt his neck. Edge hurt his neck. Daniel Bryan's head. The list can just go on and on and on about accidents happening, but there was a significant accident that happened. But before we get to that year of 2018, Jeremy, you said the heel turn for Becky Lynch was one of probably the most pivotal moments of the women's division, and how hot it was at the time, and the kickoff, honestly, to where we're at now.
Absolutely. I mean, it was the rise of Becky Lynch. It was
They lit a fire under her ass.
Right. It's a pivotal turn in the women's division, but it's also the biggest pivotal turn in Becky Lynch's career.
Right.
And so they have a triple threat women's match between Carmella, the one that we were just talking about, who cashed in Money in the Bank that year, on Charlotte Flair to win the SmackDown Women's Championship. Charlotte Flair trying to get her payback for it with a couple of unsuccessful bids, and Becky Lynch trying to put her hat in the fray. Becky Lynch was on a very, very career slump, to say the least.
And to the point where she was like, they were almost ready to give her the boot.
Yeah. She was very close. People were giving up on her. But the match goes on. Charlotte Flair wins the title for the 1,582nd time.
They always do that. They're always, and I feel like if they're just out of ideas, they're just like, yep, we might as well give Charlotte a championship. Enough, stop fucking doing that.
Charlotte! Who do you think is good? Charlotte! Who can fix my toilet? Charlotte! But...
And those of you guys that watch my
Charlotte
WWE
wins.
streams, yes, she is my current champion because I can't get the fucking belt off of her.
Well, sweet Jesus Almighty, take the wheel when it comes out. I love her. I do. I really love her. I think she's a wonderful... You can have an episode on her own. But Charlotte, I love her to death. But sometimes it's just a little oversaturated. We get that she's good. Give someone else a turn. She'll make 16. Yeah. I promise you, she'll make 16.
Give someone else a chance. Yeah.
No, yeah, but she. Anyway, but at any rate, Charlotte wins, and and at this time Charlotte was babyface. Becky was babyface. She was trying to make amends. Hey, I did it. Trying to get a handshake. And, typical heel move. Yeah, I'll hug you. That's good. She's the champ. Bam! Slap the taste out of her mouth and beat the holy crap. The crowd pops like I've never seen before. Okay? They go absolutely insane. And there you go. The rise of Becky Lynch as probably one of the best heels and a stone cold anti-hero that we haven't seen in 20 years at that point. And there we are. And so... Eventually, Becky Lynch, I think, wins. I think she wins the SmackDown title at Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, she does take the championship. They're setting up that she's got the title.
They had a couple matches between her and Charlotte. They had a great last woman standing match at Evolution 2018, which is by far one of the best pay-per-views with just singular women.
Yeah, so that they put on the first the women's pay-per-view, all women, the women's show. This was awesome, a long time coming, but just the biggest. At this time, we're getting the biggest showcase of women that was much needed.
It was so good. As a matter of fact, I should watch that after this.
We should watch.
It was one of the best pay-per-views of 2018, and they stole it. I mean, they had women past, present, and future. But anyway. Becky Lynch wins at Hell in a Cell, wins the SmackDown Women's title at Hell in a Cell.
So they're setting up, at this point, Becky versus Ronda
Rousey at Survivor Series.
So those of y'all that aren't familiar with Survivor Series, it's the Thanksgiving tradition, Thanksgiving week. You have whoever is the champion of SmackDown and the champion of Raw, they go up against each other, so forth. The mid-card titles go up against each other. The heavyweight titles go up against each other. The women titles go up against each other. Everyone's going up against each other. And then they have a tag team match, which is an elimination match of teams between Raw and SmackDown and all that stuff. So leading up to this, they introduced. This the first year that they introduced the invasion angle, right?
No, they did that the year before.
The year before,
but I think it's the first time that women were involved.
The women, that's what I'm saying. The women were involved in the invasion of the other brands. So Becky Lynch, she's leading the charge. She's leading the charge this whole month.
SmackDown.
Obviously, and what happens is now they're invading, and all the women are backstage. And this was some of the coolest thing to see, by the way, because you've never seen this before. They're in there. The women have never looked so kick-ass ever. Every single one of them, they all looked awesome during this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling of like, it almost took for a second, like, are you Monday Night Raw? Are you SmackDown? People were taking sides. It was getting. This is probably some of the most intense Survivor Series action we've had in a long time, and I will attest that 100,000% to the women at this time.
Yeah, that Survivor Series in Los Angeles was probably one of the better Survivor Series. One of the better Survivor Series as far as competition goes.
So they're building big money match. This is everyone's looking forward to Lynch versus Ronda.
Ronda and Becky, I think would have been poised to main event that pay-per-view.
That would have stole the show, and we're talking in past tense now because it did not get to happen, guys. That match did not get to happen. So after all that hype, it finally fell because of Nia fucking Jax. So they're doing Invasion of the Angle. They're backstage. Everyone's beating the crap out of each other. They're simulating a street fight, basically. Ronda's getting her ass handed to her. And at some point in the night, Nia Jax throws a punch and just clocks Becky square in the face. Full on. Full on punch, guys. I'm talking hard.
I mean, it was like she stole something from her or something.
She hurt this girl. It's one of those.
It's like punching a Karen in the face type punch.
Hurt her so bad to the point where she was not medically cleared to participate. But Becky, she was so badass, and she knew the fire that behind her. And that must have hurt like motherfucking hell, Jeremy. That must have hurt so bad. But she continued. She finished out the show. Blood pouring down her face and all. She used it to her advantage. She's like, yeah, look at this. Yeah.
But I loved that image.
Loved it. Yeah.
I loved that image with the blood on her face.
That was
because
the most,
it showed who Becky Lynch really was.
It did.
And is. She's, probably one of the baddest women to and I'm glad she had that career turn. But that punch should have never happened.
No, it should not have never happened.
Because you probably would have seen one of the greatest women's matches in history. The lead up was so good between those two. Ronnie, I'm coming after you. She was.
Becky
so
was coming after her
man.
so bad. She was calling her weirdos, calling her a little weirdo.
She said, she was calling her a weirdo, and they were really getting in each other's face. I think that was great.
It was good content, yeah.
But lo and behold, Nia Jax just has to screw it up for everybody. And now Becky's out.
Mm-hmm.
They choose a replacement, which is, of course, who
Charlotte.
else? Fix My Toilet, Charlotte Flair. Okay. So Charlotte Flair now is the replacement. And not saying they had a bad match.
No, it was good.
But it's just like all this hype.
For nothing.
This lead up.
Boom. And also, all this hype and all this lead up, guys, it never also fully came to fruition, because eventually what happened is we lead to the triple threat at WrestleMania the next year. We'll get to that.
Right,
but we lead to that. But the problem is that we never, ever once again saw Becky and Ronda ever, I should say, squash that. They never had that one-on-one. They never got that opportunity. No. And then, honestly, the main event at Mania, because of the ending, it was very lackluster. you know.
Well, I mean, if we can back up a little bit,
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, we
uh,
can.
to you know, you go to TLC, which is tables, ladders, and chairs. Asuka wins the women's title because Ronda Rousey threw both Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch off the ladder, and Asuka takes the win for that one. But the lead up to the main event of WrestleMania, uh,
Because Becky dropped the title there, right?
Becky Lynch. Well, hold on. So yeah, Becky dropped the title at TLC.
Yeah.
But then we get to the Royal Rumble of 2019. Becky Lynch had a match at the beginning with Asuka, and they had a pretty solid match. She ends up losing.
Yeah, she lost the match to
Becky
Asuka. Yeah.
and Lana. So we have the second women's Royal Rumble match
In history
Lana,
is what he means. The second one ever. Yeah.
right. Lana comes out. She's hurt with a knee injury. It's fake.
Yeah.
Of course. And all of a sudden, you see Becky Lynch come out. Becky Lynch enters herself into the Royal Rumble, which the crowd went absolutely bananas for.
And it was interesting too because the Finley was out there. Finley was out there.
Yeah.
And he's talking, and then Becky comes up right behind him, and it was just like hey, you want to be in it? You want to be in it? Okay, go ahead, right ahead.
Well, she was begging to be in
Yeah.
it. She was like, look, all these people are behind me. Look at it, and you can see the footage too. Look, I'm behind, I'm behind. These people are behind me, she's hurt. Put me in. That's just and he's like, go ahead if you want it. If you want it, go ahead. And I mean, the people went crazy. And
Lost their damn
I think
mind.
it came down to either one of those two. I forgot who was the runner-up. Was it Nia Jax?
It might have been. I don't remember. But Becky wins either way.
But Becky wins the Royal Rumble. Great. She comes to Monday Night Raw and says, "I've been waiting for you, Ronnie." And this is where the WrestleMania main event would have been a main event. You know what I mean? She says,
really wish if that was just it. I really wish that we just had Becky Ronda at Mania. I really wish.
And that's what I was saying. I said you could build that Stone Cold moment.
Yeah.
Without Charlotte. You could have done it totally with that. And like I said, no disrespect.
They missed that opportunity there.
But what it does is that it does a lot of damage in the process.
Well, because you guys, if you guys remember back in the day, the Rock and Hogan at Mania, and that moment that they created of just looking at each other and looking back at the crowd and looking at each other is because they spent all that time building Hulk versus Rock. They built all that time. And then they did the same thing this time with Becky and Charlotte, or Becky and Ronda. They built this whole thing. And that could have happened at Mania. They really could have. That could have happened. They could have had that moment too. But instead, they inserted Charlotte into this as well.
The damage that was done because of that.
They ruined it.
I think Vince and creative were like, well, we can't have a WrestleMania main event without Charlotte Flair.
Without Charlotte.
Tough bananas. Okay, that's what I would say. Tough bananas. We can build on these two alone and still make a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what happens is that now they insert, I guess they put a suspension angle in there where Vince McMahon was like, Becky Lynch, you're suspended for 30 days. We need a new, we need the WrestleMania main event. Here's Charlotte Flair. And boy, were people upset. Yeah. That was one of the most disliked videos on YouTube on the WWE's channel, period.
People did not like that shit, no.
People didn't like it. And then, Becky does Stone Cold moments. And
this is where the persona now changes, where she is the man. She starts calling herself the man. The t-shirt, her outfit changes. And she's just playing that, honestly, the badass character really well. She's doing really well with that.
It's very stone cold. But the thing is,
My
guys,
favorite moment is when all three of them got arrested backstage. So they, and I can break this segment down. They go, I think they're in DC. They're using rookie police officers, like cadets or something like that. None of them, it was really funny because it was blatantly obvious that none of them had weapons, because you can tell that they got to the arena and they're like, oh, you can't bring your weapons in here. So they took them out. But all of the straps to the holsters were all just hanging off. And it looked really funny. So they go out there and they arrest everyone and they bring them backstage, and they put Charlotte and Rhonda in the back of the car. Or was it Becky and Rhonda in the back of the car? The police car. And the one of the police windows gets broken out.
It was Becky and
Yeah,
Rhonda.
they're both in handcuffs here. They're both in handcuffs. Ronda Rousey's in handcuffs. Becky Lynch is in handcuffs. They're in the back of the police car. They starts kicking each other. They break a police window. Fucking, and this is and Rhonda's like leaning out the window. She takes a knee off the fucking face, and you could tell like, oh, I wasn't expecting that shit. Like, it was just this crazy ass segment that was building up. And I remember them yelling, "That's the main event of WrestleMania, getting taken away in handcuffs."
And I remember you do. I remember you posting something that just had me in stitches, like the police academy, the police cadets, or something.
Yeah, the police academy showed up.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but to just scream laughing. But I think we forgot one integral part. So Charlotte wins the SmackDown Women's title against Asuka, which hence makes the WrestleMania main event a winner-take-all match.
Yeah, we're building to double championships, essentially.
We're building to double title goal, which, okay, whatever. But, yeah, the lead-up, probably the last WrestleMania, that's what we're talking about, the last Raw before WrestleMania. That's their little segment that they
got
being escorted out of police cars, breaking windows, going to jail.
One of my one of my favorite WWE segments of the last decade, though, I'd have to say, that whole thing.
I thought it was good. I thought it was fun.
I liked it. But then
we get to New York and New Jersey. We get to WrestleMania 35.
And this is the build-up. This is the biggest match they've ever built in the history of women at this point, I think.
They did, but I think, to me, and this is a very, very opinionated piece on my end, we didn't need Charlotte Flair.
No, we did not. We did not.
Becky and Rhonda were good on their own.
It was almost like they were scared. They were scared that they couldn't do it on their own. Almost, that's what it seemed like they were scared of. That they were scared that Becky and Rhonda couldn't put on the show. I felt like that's what it seemed like. But we knew they could.
Here's what you got. You got the hottest superstar, male or female, in a Stone Cold Steve Austin position. Okay, the hottest, white hot. Okay, you have the biggest name that you could put out there in combat sports in Ronda Rousey. Okay, there you go.
That's all you need right there.
Charlotte could have done something else.
She could have done much more else.
Asuka and Charlotte could have had a rematch.
Asuka Charlotte 2 would have been cool. I thought that's what we were going to do anyway.
I thought so too, but not really.
Not really, no. But so we get this triple threat match. It plays out okay. It's kind of weird. Ronda suffers a hand injury during the match. I remember that. A real one in real life. Yes, she does hurt her hand. Well, she'll live. Okay. She is one of the greatest fighters of all time. She was fine. But...
Okay, a paper cut.
Yeah, sure. A paper cut to her, essentially. But she tried to sell the hand thing. The announcers were selling the fucking thing of it. Topic, Beth Phoenix. You want to talk about that? Well, I can talk about Beth Phoenix. Don't worry. But let's finish this first. So Becky, what happens here, this whole fucking ending now, after all this time, ends in a weird roll-up that we're not even sure really was a pinfall. And that was and it was just a strange view. I guess people weren't able to see very well on TV. It looked awkward, and what it looked like was Becky rolled her up, got the title, and it was just like boom. Okay, Becky got the championship. Everyone hit the pomp and circumstance, hit the graffiti, hit the fireworks. Boom, 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 boom. That's basically that's what it was. It felt so rushed. Like it was like your adrenaline was running so fast, and then they like passed out and ran and hit the floor because
Well,
the ending looked bad. It was very botched.
very botched, very much so. It attests to the fact too that not a lot of people were in it because uh, WrestleMania was 5.5 hours.
Yeah, that was a long show, that one.
To put someone in a situation of a 5.5 hour show.
The crowd was exhausted by the time they get to the end.
You're already looking at 1 o'clock in the morning on Monday, April the 8th.
These fans are
2019.
tired.
You're looking at East Coast time. You're fatigued. You're tired. You've been there since like 3. The process of WrestleMania, you're there at 2 p.m. because the festivities really start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, you're there all day. You're tired. You want to go home. You've been sitting in line just to get inside the building, for goodness sake. Depending on where you are, it's too hot. I mean, when I went to Orlando for 33, it was hot as shit. It was 85 degrees. No, it was 90 degrees Austin with, I think, 80% humidity because it rained. You live there. You know what it's like.
Yeah, I know.
It's like you can't. I'm a West Coast kid. I don't know what humidity is. I'm over here sweating and I can't breathe. But I digress. That's just my little rant.
Yeah. But no, the ending didn't end in the way that everyone thought was going to happen.
That's why WrestleMania needs to be 2 nights. Or cut the show to 4 hours. I can do 4 hours. That's no problem.
It's a long day,
I just can't do 8.5 hours. I just clocked in to watch WrestleMania, and now I'm clocking out.
Well, either way, though, they went ahead with the history-telling moment. Becky is now double champion. The pictures taken, the confetti's everywhere. We finally get to Becky Lynch is now the ultimate of all time.
Whoa!
She's the best now. Basically the story's over, and Ronda kind of disappears from after here. Time's up for Ronda essentially because that's what she wanted. But at the same time, and to kind of finish on Ronda, I know we talked a lot about these guys tonight, and I know we wanted to finish up with some other stuff tonight too. But I felt that Ronda made a little bit of a mockery of our business, just a bit. Because I think at some point, the heel character for her, she fell into because the crowd kind of forced her into it because they were kind of over it a little bit. They knew that. I think some people felt the awkwardness in the ring, and she knew that. And then I remember her, you could clearly hear her on television. She screams to the crowd. Someone's talking about, hey, what about the UFC? She screams about, and basically a fan is yelling to her about the armbar. And she yells back and she says, yeah, pay $60 and then I'll show you what a real armbar means. And she's referring to pay pay-per-view money to watch UFC. And it was like, are you serious? Are you taking this thing seriously at all? It didn't feel like, as a fan, she was taking this shit seriously at all. Like she was kind of making a joke of it, in my opinion.
In a sense, probably, but I think she knows the business good enough to kind of just poke the bear a bit. She knows how fans get, and that's how I thought of it. She never really hated professional wrestling. She really liked it, from what she says. Once again, do we think it's fact or fiction? Not quite sure. But
her delivery, it just seemed almost like she didn't care.
I just think that, she knew what she was getting herself into. And she knew that, she's just poking the bear. That's how I think what she's doing. And probably just take it with a grain of salt, in a sense. But, yeah, I mean, if she really was, she would have just totally ripped into the company.
Yeah.
But they paid her a lot of money. They paid her nearly Brock money. So, I don't really know that, but they paid her quite a bit of money.
They paid her quite a bit, yeah. So she did what she said she was going to do. She did her thing. She got everything she said she wanted, and then...
Well, what more was there for her to prove?
There was nothing more. So that, honestly, the year of Ronda was what it was, and then we moved on, honestly. That's honestly essentially what happened. We just moved on.
very lackluster 2019, to say the
The women's
least.
division was never the same, though, after that WrestleMania. Never. It
No,
never went back to normal.
as much as Becky Lynch did her best to hold on to it, it just seemed like they were like, okay, well, Ronda's gone now. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it goes to show again, once again, WWE creative, when they're off on a high, they don't know. They used to, but they don't. They don't know what's in the back pocket.
And they do this with the women all the time. They focus on one particular story, and then when that story is finished being told, they don't have anything prepared for the future. There's no backup. Because they drop the title, one of the titles from Becky, so she loses the second title. She holds on to one all the way up until the next WrestleMania, where she now has to real life give up the title because she's pregnant with Seth Rollins' child. They, but that whole year it's just weird. There was no, storytelling really. There wasn't any. It was just really lackluster. There wasn't anything, because they just spent the last couple years so invested in it. It was like you could kind of tell they were taking a break, but at the same time, you can't just take a break because you guys are the ones that say that your business never stops. That it's a year-round thing, that it keeps going and going and going, and the story never stops.
I just feel that they weren't really prepared for that kind of thing.
So
I think after Ronda left, they just kind of said, "Well, forget it. We'll do our best," but we.
They introduced the tag titles a little bit, and that
That's
helps.
right, didn't they?
The women's tag championships does come into play. That does help. It does. Sasha and Bailey. Who else would be better other than them to take
what
it?
Happened? Yes. Yeah.
Elimination Chamber match for the titles.
Yeah, they're inaugural women's tag team champions. I totally forgot
and they're
about
outright.
that.
They deserve that and I wish we had more time tonight to go into Bailey and Sasha. We can honestly just make that into one itself. But
we can really touch
with Bailey and Sasha. They were the workhorses really of this whole thing. After this, and Asuka, Bailey. They were the workhorses after this whole thing, because after the Ronda Rousey and the Becky Lynch hype went down, then they turned to, I guess you can say, old reliable, which is Sasha and Bailey, because they did so good in NXT. They had the story beforehand. When they were broke up the first time, they reunite. They're champions, and they're champions for a long time. And they did a good job of going back and forth. Now that you see the women's championships, they go back and forth between NXT, the SmackDown, Raw. They're going all throughout.
They were everywhere.
Yeah, they're all over every single show. That was cool. Which gave some of the NXT women some chance there as well. But the 2019 Survivor Series for NXT and the women for NXT especially was awesome, because now at this Survivor Series they interject NXT, and I want to talk about that Survivor Series eventually one day too. But that NXT, they get the NXT women in there, and the Shayna Baszler, they're painting Shayna Baszler as the next badass. So they're starting to get some of the talent for the future a little bit. Things are starting to change a little bit, but it was just overall that the year was lackluster, and then no one ever saw that coming, that Becky would become pregnant, and then at that point, sorry, go ahead.
No, at that point, you kind of see a little more, like you said, a little more rising stars. You see stars and Rhea Ripley coming up. Her in that, in that Survivor Series match.
Ripley is one of the best thing, man or woman, to grace NXT.
She is a very wonderful competitor. For her, the virtue of having the best ending to a 2019, probably a Hail Mary, and getting up there, I think that's wonderful for her. She came out strong out of 2019,
and she's hot. She was red hot as well. Kind of the same hype that Becky had. Ripley had the same hype at NXT. She was the guy for NXT. And now, she is coming into the main roster, and I just hope that this time they don't bury an NXT debut, especially like her. She's too damn good for that. She's too damn
Yeah.
good for that.
That would be a waste of
Be a
time,
waste.
talent, and money. If you do that, I mean, they need to learn their lesson quick and efficiently, because when Keith Lee came, he came with such hype, but all of a sudden you see a whole different person that they're trying to repackage, which is not really a good thing, in my opinion. But we'll talk about that. We're on the women, but yeah, Rhea Ripley was actually the biggest star that really came out of 2019 as far as women, male or female, probably. Well, I wouldn't say male because Keith Lee falls into that category too. But Rhea Ripley, she becomes NXT Women's Champion. And she goes into the Royal Rumble the next, in 2020. The last time we had a big crowd together at a pay-per-view, and she proved herself pretty well. But the virtue is that she's the first NXT superstar to actually become a competitor at WrestleMania. She's the first woman to defend the NXT championship of any kind at a WrestleMania. Not only did Rhea Ripley, I know we're kind of skipping, but I think she's very important to 2020. She got everyone's attention. She gets Charlotte, who was the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble winner, to pick her as as the champion to go into WrestleMania. And not only that, even though the circumstances are so sad that she was preparing to be in front of 78,000 people, they stole the show night 2 of WrestleMania.
They did.
So I kind of have to give it to her because she's a wonderful woman.
And at this time, the pandemic hits, and
oh boy,
they stole a show for a crowd that wasn't there, but at the same time, had they been, it would have still been equally as good, not better. But they did good. They did good. And it was interesting, too, because a lot of people were disappointed. They're like, oh, this is a waste of the Royal Rumble. It's a waste of Charlotte. But I didn't see it like that, because I saw it as, this is, like you said, the opportunity for her to showcase NXT, to showcase herself on a huge stage, regardless if, the fans were there or not. She still put her stamp in the wrestling books that she did that. And that's a lot there, too. And the
only current NXT superstar, and I mean current, still on the NXT roster to compete at WrestleMania. No one can take that from her.
And so going at this point now, late 19, going into 2020, this is where creative for women starts to really, really, really fall apart. And then, we get the Money in the Bank match with the women again for the pandemic Money in the Bank at Titan Towers, where they're climbing the towers. And Asuka wins Money in the Bank.
Yay!
And that was interesting because they turned the Money in the Bank match now into the story, like a cinematography match at Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
For both the men and the women. They're climbing all throughout the corporate towers, literally like fighting through offices and shit. So that was interesting. They had to do some kind of entertainment with Money in the Bank. That was interesting. That was very outside the box what they did there.
Well, you had to be because
they had to
couldn't really do a ladder match at that time.
No. So the very outside the box, Asuka wins. The next night, we find out Becky's pregnant. Inside the briefcase is the title instead of the championship. So she automatically wins the title instead of the contract. So she wins the championship there. And things just start to fall apart from there for the women. The women then, the tag team belts, Sasha and Bayley, they finished their story, the two of them together, which was awesome. They finally got all through that, telling that second story, and Bayley drops the championship. They drop the tag titles. But now the women here in the current climate, they're getting tossed around between tag teams. They just say, one woman over here, now you're with her, now you're not with her, now you're with her. Matches are back to their very quick ones again. They introduce bullshit like the fucking the dirty old man angles again. They introduced the mixed tag match angles again between Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans, Seth Rollins, and Becky Lynch. Vince has such a weird fetish for exploiting wrestlers' relationship on television. It's strange. They bring that shit again multiple times in 2019 and going into 2020 for the women too, because then they do that bullshit with Liv Morgan coming back, and they run that angle that she's a lesbian and she's involved in the wedding between her and Bobby Lashley and Rusev. It's just so annoying. Like, we've already seen this forever in the previous decade, multiple times.
It's so
this
irrelevant,
angle.
I forgot.
It's so irrelevant. It's just stupid creative that they're just like, we don't know what else to do with the women. I don't know.
Her into a lesbian. Oh.
They just did stupid things with the women. It was annoying.
What?
And nothing and it sucks because it showcased only a couple good women, but everyone else they were treating like shit, giving them these bad segments, giving them these bad matches, making a fool of this whole thing after we just had this whole build-up of great women's division matches for a long time, and it just crashes and motherfucking burns now.
That Bobby Lashley Lana storyline was absolutely
horrendous.
The funniest. And it's not funny because it was meant to be funny, but it's just like, this is such a bad episode of Dr. Phil.
Yeah, this is bad.
And it's like, now you're kicking Rusev in his manhood because because his real life wife is kissing another.
By the way, yeah, awkwardly on television. Your wife, I understand you guys are actors, but your wife is awkwardly with another man on live television at a sporting event, sticking her tongue down another man's throat while you're watching in the middle of a wrestling ring.
You see that in movies all the time.
You see it in movies, but you don't see it at fucking wrestling events.
But your actual wife is right in front of you, like this close.
Right that close to you.
Making out.
You're watching that happen. That's so nasty. Even as an actor in that point, you gotta be like, okay, this is a little uncomfortable here.
Well, as an actor, it's like, yeah, well, it is a job for us to do that, but it's like not when you're like doing it when they're like, I think creatives like cheerleaders with pom poms, like keep doing it. That's so uncomfortable, That's like it seemed like it was so personal, and it took a shot at him, personally.
It did,
and I don't know how else to justify that segment. It's just so
it's not
difficult.
Justifiable at all. But
I mean, yuck.
Captain wants to talk Beth Phoenix real quick, so we can explore Beth Phoenix. Beth Phoenix is married to Edge in real life. Now she's a commentator on NXT.
Oh, yes.
She doesn't attend the show live. They do it over video or voice call, I guess you could say. She calls into the show, and understandably so. She's a mother. She has children. She has a family. Edge is at home. They got things to do. The pandemic, whatnot. But Beth, honestly, she was the dominance of most of the early Ruthless Aggression era going into late 26's era, and then they put her in some comedy angles here and there, but overall she was painted as she is the glamazon, that she was the strongest, that she was unbeatable, that she was one of the better women. She looked physically more fit than all the other women, especially as well. She was much taller in stature as well than the other women. So they did a really good job with Beth Phoenix, and her career was cut a little short. And then she had a resurgence. She came back. She was involved a lot with that Revolution as well. She took a nasty bump to the back of the head a little while in her second resurgence. That I remember because she turned her head and the back of her head was just red because she's got very long blonde hair. And then she turned around and the back of her head was just crimson. She took a nasty bump, so that hurt too. And after that, she just the second wind of Beth Phoenix kind of had to die out a little bit, unfortunately.
Well, I don't think it was really much of a second run. I think it was more as of I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do some work. I think it was at a Royal Rumble. I think I can remember because I remember seeing that too. I said, her hair was never red when it came out. She's busted open.
She busted right open, yeah. Nasty bump.
But these ladies are tough, man.
Yeah,
they
they are.
they may look
And
like
Beth was the
they're
toughest of the
little
best.
dolls.
Yeah. But now,
She,
Jeremy, if we talk
yeah,
the current women's stuff, now that we got to current, it's just not. It's not. First of all, it's not the same. A lot of it
no,
is awkward. They rely too much on the same story, and now it's so like unrememberable some of the stuff that they're doing on regular television that they they give the tag titles with Becky and not Becky with Bailey and Sasha, and one of them's the champion, the other one's not. We've seen that story again now with Charlotte and Asuka, champion, one of them's not. What are you gonna do? We all know what you're gonna do. They're gonna break up, and then the double championship's gonna get lost, and then one of them is gonna fight. We all know. We've seen the same story over and over and over again. Just tell new fucking stories. That's what it's the pandemic right now. I understand, and you guys are low on talent and things like that. But stop telling the same story. Unfortunately, what you told from 2017 until now, we don't want to see it again. You can't do that. And you've always done that with the women since you decided, not you decided, that you necessarily needed to, was fix the women's divisions and take away the diva shit that we talked about earlier today and take away some of the sex sells sexism and give them more of a chance to be athletic. And since then, WWE tends to, they don't have honestly any, direction sometimes for the women, especially right now.
yeah. I mean, it really goes to show the true, like I said, it's the true nature of the creative. Unfortunately, trying to find things that work. Not all the time, and I know we always bash the creative, and not all the time are you going to produce good stories, but because there's some that are going to hit, there's going to be some that really miss, and especially with the company that's been around as long as WWE has, there are times where you hit those slumps in creative. You can always have 2 good years of good television programming, but still at the same time, it's like what happens, to try to keep it fresh. And I think they've been failing miserably at that.
Yeah, definitely.
But the thing is, yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same. And I just don't know what to do to kind of heal that. But I know that, with the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania coming up, and we have a clear direction of where we're going for WrestleMania, more than we did last year, I think, you can really start building up some talent going forward. I know Bianca Belair is a big player that you can do 10 million things with.
That's what they need to do, is build talent moving forward.
Naomi,
because if they fall
Naomi.
into the same record that they always play, especially at this time of the year, how crucial these next few months of the year are, the decisions they make now will forever have consequences, as you can see, because Jeremy and I just talked about 2 hours of what happens when you tell stories in weirdness like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it's not engaging, it's a problem. I mean, and it's with the men too. It's with men and women, but mainly the women are not getting that shot. But there's a lot of great women on that roster, both Raw and SmackDown, that you can really utilize. Point blank, like we said on SmackDown, I think Bianca Belair is a great challenger for Sasha Banks. That will be probably one of the best rivalries if executed correctly.
If you give Bianca the platform, you give Belair the chance to move to number one. She's going to take that chance. She will run with it.
Shine.
Yeah, she can shine.
She's proved it. She's proved it even in the last year's Royal Rumble match when she came out at number 1 or 2. And even my dad, who hadn't watched wrestling in so long, said that girl is good.
She's one of the most in-shape women ever I've seen in a long time.
Right, and she is fantastic, and I like her. I like her a lot. I want to see her succeed. You can put Bailey back to being a hugger again if you want to. That's fine. You can do so much.
The Bailey heel turn was so necessary though, because it finally allowed for her to break those chains of the little girl character, if you will. She was playing so hard to the goodness character and the goody two shoes character that it got annoying in my opinion. So when she finally turned heel, I was very excited. I was like, finally, she's finally, and Bailey coming to
You
her
texted
own.
me about that too.
Yeah.
You told me like yes, and I was there when she did that too. When the Bailey buddies came out and she had those, I think it was like hedge clippers or something, and she was
She
like
cut him
clipping
down.
the Bailey. A little girl was actually crying a row ahead of me. Actually, she loved that. I said, "Oh, she did her job then." You know, she did it. But yeah, I mean, Bailey is good. I mean, you got talent. You just got to stop relying so much because these folks, I think, will have some great stories to tell. And like you said, Austin, WrestleMania season for everybody is a consequential season. It's a roadmap for the rest of your year. It's a roadmap for the rest of your creative. So you have to execute it well, or else it's all going to go to chaos.
Well, maybe things will change now, especially with the fact that we do have the potential of fans being there this year.
Yeah, a very good potential.
Very good potential. I mean, I will definitely be there if I can be in a safe capacity. I definitely will be.
I think they'll have to because I don't think they would want that egg on their face for not being. Even though DeSantis said that stadiums can be filled to capacity, I don't think WWE wants to bark up that tree.
I know we didn't mention too much about the AEW women real quick. We talk a few minutes about them as well, but so that's you feel the AEW women are very it's not great, and I would say this, they're having a hard time. I think the draw of their first champion, what was her name again? Rio, I think it's her name.
Oh yeah, Rio. Yeah, she was okay.
So I think her really good. She was really well, and then the whole thing that they had with her and Nyla Rose was really good. They were trying to paint Nyla Rose as the next dominant force, but nothing has, in my opinion, with AEW women, nothing has stuck yet. They haven't really found their way into the women's division yet. It's a little Hikaru Shida. She's wonderful. She's a great champ and whatnot, but it's just. Like you said, right now, unfortunately, the AEW women's matches are not great, and the AEW women's divisions are a little lackluster right now. It's hard. They're building. They're understand they're building, but at the same time, you have to also you have to put the effort in telling stories with your talent, because like AEW is so fresh that you have these new women. Most of these women, people have never even heard of them in their life.
But but you can still build them up like you're building up a Darby, like you're building up an Orange Cassidy. If you put that much effort into building up your guys, like a Jungle Boy or whatever,
you can do the same for the women.
You can build up those women. You have a very good roster of very talented women on there.
They just need more time. Give them more opportunity. Give them a better time. Give them a little better booking.
They have been so fixated on their men, and I'm not trying to like I said, only so much you can do in 2 hours, but if you're really trying to make a viable women's division, you have to start putting them front and center. It's very rare that we get to see them wrestle in matches on a Dynamite. We haven't really seen the champ in a few weeks.
Yeah, the women need a push. They need a push, and they need a star. There isn't one right now. I'm sorry, there just isn't one.
But there is a woman that they have not utilized that I think they need to utilize, and her name is Dr. Britt Baker.
Mm-hmm.
She is the uncrowned champion. I said, why not? She's a heel. She's a dentist.
Let her do her things. What they're doing with Baker, champion. They're just playing into her heel character and making the videos and the comedy and whatnot. No, to let her wrestle, let her tell a story in the ring, let her give champion, let her be a heel with a belt and cause problems. Let her do what we know she can do.
And I don't think the Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose thing is not working. I just think it's not pushing Nyla along as much. And I love
you have
Vicky.
To protect Nyla's image. You have to, because with Nyla's image, because so many people came for her. And so many people are trying to tear down her image because of her real life personal issues, which I'm not going to exploit here. But however, people came for her so much that they need to protect her image, and they're not doing that right now. They're not doing that at all. nothing against Vicky Guerrero or nothing, but it's not giving Nyla Rose that image protection that she needs.
It's just so much that they have to build, still. But a viable women's division is going to take you a long way.
Long way.
And I think they need to really start getting on it quickly, because you don't want them to forget about your women's division. You have strong talent that's going to go to the wayside. And that's the thing.
Sometimes it's forgettable. Honestly, sometimes I forget they even have a championship.
Isn't that sad?
And it shouldn't be like that, especially with a new company. But things can and should turn around for them very soon, because, like you said, you'll lose it quick if they don't.
I mean, they got to get a challenger. It seems like, I think now AEW is hitting some little ruts in the road, which is fine. I mean, they're new. They're going to hit those ruts in the road. But, I mean, just bring it up. I mean, Hikaru Shida should be defending that title more than what she's been doing. She should be on TV a little more. She's a great talent. Dr. Britt Baker, get her back on TV. I know she's fighting Thunder Rosa at Beach Break in February, so that's one of those first matches, so good on her. But I think it's time for Britt to get in her position. I think Big Swole is great. I think, Tay Conti proved herself. She's a driving force. You gotta start putting them more front and center than they have.
They gotta paint a star. They need to put a picture. They need a Charlotte. AW needs a Charlotte. Unfortunately, you have to, because you need, as much as you have Kenny Omega and you've got the draw with the men, because you do. You also need the draw with the women as well.
Yep, and I think Britt Baker's that person, to be honest.
I do too, because she is one of the best of the bunch, if not the best of the bunch. And she's smart, and she's good athlete.
I just don't think I can buy into her. Buy into the women's division. I can't buy into it right now.
Not right now. No, I agree with you that.
I mean, later, but you're kind of just putting your women's champion on the wayside here. But anyway, NXT has a very good roster of women. But once Rhea Ripley leaves, I think they're going to be finding themselves in a rut.
That's why I'm afraid it's going to happen, but we'll see. I just don't want them.
You're building up Raquel. Building up Raquel, which is great. She's a monster of a woman. I buy her as a champion. I think she can beat Io Shirai.
Raquel is incredible. Raquel is amazing. Her and Ripley put on a damn show with the last woman standing. Yep. They are damn good. She's gonna go places. It's just the start for her. I'm a little over, the Candice LeRae thing. I understand they got the whole the way. I think it's annoying. I think it's stupid. But I'm trying to find now the women's Dusty Cup bracket to see, but it's
light.
It's light.
It's not full.
So, but we do have Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter taking on Tony Storm and Mercedes this week.
Mercedes Martinez.
Yeah. And that's their team. Those are part of the classics. Shotzi and Ember, it looks like, are together in there. But yeah, we just don't know everything yet. It's probably, it's going to be a lot of putting random people together. So definitely get used to seeing that. People that, putting women together just to, honestly, unfortunately, just to fill space, because the roster is a little bit thinner.
Well, remember, the first Dusty Cup was like that. It was very random.
It was very random. But yeah,
Casey Catanzaro, I had forgotten about her. Mrs. Ricochet.
Mrs. Ninja Warrior.
Yeah. That's good.
With the Dusty Women's Cup, it's hard to say. It's up in the air.
You don't know too much about it.
Don't know too much about it. We can't really speculate on who we think would be like the most dominant at this point. We just really don't know much of the teams or anything. We don't really know, but it's a good chance to tell, to paint. This is the opportunity to paint women right now to build stars or a star, and especially if the end goal here is to give them women's tag team championship match as the reward, as well as taking home Dusty's Cup. But
hey, that's good to to face Charlotte and Asuka is a big notch under your belt,
yeah,
as it is. So I think I'm not. We don't know too much about it to even speculate who could win. There's not a lot of established tag teams, that we're familiar with. But hopefully, in the coming weeks, we can lightly talk about probably on our weekly show when we have more information.
yeah, we'll find out some more this week. Yeah.
And then probably we'll have a good discussion about that one.
Yeah.
But
how do you? I know I wanted to end the night on your thoughts with the inclusion with the NWA Championship into AEW.
NWA is good. NWA
Yeah.
Power, ran by Billy Corgan, has produced stars like Ricky Starks, resurrected careers like guys of Aaron Stevens, who is known as Damian Sandow.
Yep.
It's Nick Aldis, who was Magnus in TNA. He's on there as the NWA World's Champion. I think it's great that the NWA is being represented. NWA is one of the oldest wrestling organizations ever, I think on planet Earth, in the United States. 70 years, I think 75 coming up, somewhere in between them.
My biggest thing is I like that what Tony and AEW are doing with giving that that platform, that TV time, that big spot for them, bringing the NWA Championship to their, showcasing women, almost like a little bit of a mid-card thing, if you will, for the women.
Yeah,
but
it is. It's more. It's trying to give more opportunity to the women. Serena Deeb is a great NWA Women's Champion. Thunder Rosa was the NWA Women's Champion. Yeah. So she was good.
The point I guess I'm trying to make is, especially with both shows, is that, this is the time, especially right now, to build stars, build new women's stars, so that we can have good divisions moving forward,
And expanding the horizons.
Expanding everything, yeah. But, I think it was a good episode. It's good topics, all the women tonight. That was a lot of fun. We could be here all night and talk more about them. Hours, yeah, but definitely we got some good topics come out of here too that we'll focus on too. Rhea Ripley we'll do one on Sasha and Bailey, all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, I guess that's it that I have for tonight. All of our topics. Next week we'll meet again Friday night. We'll talk about everything, all the shows like we did, and then buckle your seatbelts because we're gonna do the John Cena and Randy Orton story. We might have to split that up over 2 hours. It just depends we might have to split that up into 2 episodes. I mean, just depending on everything that we get through. Just depends.
Possibly or start earlier, but I think when you talk about John Cena and Orton, you're talking 20 years worth of material. So it's
he's not exaggerating either. 20 years.
Gosh, it's just.
Well, guys.
Next week.
Yeah, next week. Well, guys, thank you all for joining us tonight for this episode, the Women's Division episode. Appreciate all of the support from Captain, Nasty Leroy. Thank you for coming by again. Shout out, you let everyone know down at the Nightmare family and AEW how give everyone our best. Thank you to Skull Root for always coming by. Sarah for 369 for interacting and keeping the conversation. She likes your joke. I see who you're gonna call to fix your toilet, Charlotte. I like that. We're gonna have to continue that. Charlotte does fix your toilets apparently, but
who do you call Charlotte to fix your toilet?
You can follow us both here. Our usernames are on Instagram are here at AJ East Coast and at JeremyAT. And then also please subscribe to the Tag Out also on Instagram, and we'll be looking forward to reposting these videos there and on YouTube, and then setting up so eventually good to go for Apple and stuff like that. But I've got nothing else tonight, Jeremy. How about you?
Well, get ready. We got a lot of content coming your way, guys.
Yes, sir.
A lot. So please stick with us. We got. I think we should do we'll talk about that later.
All right.
But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really greatly appreciate your support. I'm having a good time doing this. But I'm excited for what the future holds for this podcast, guys.
Me too.
It's exciting.
Well, we'll see you guys next week. My name is AJ East Coast, and I have been your host. Y'all have a good night.
Bye-bye.